Hello, good morning, and welcome to Sunrise Daily. I'm Chamberlain Uso.
Well, it is a beautiful Monday morning from here in Lagos. I am Kaido Kikyodo.
Well, it's a welcome for you as well. Good morning and welcome. It's a brilliant Monday morning and a new week, by the way.
Absolutely. Of course.
Well, has there ever been any Monday that is
Also a new week.
I just wonder what's going on there.
I really can tell what goes on in some people's minds.
Okay, well, last week, the governor of Borno State, while he was on a particular tour, and then that shooting that occurred, we did look at it as a matter of fact on Friday, and it was quite scary. Lots of people were concerned about it. So that scene raised some concerns, as it were. But, it was this particular one, actually. So there's still questions about what really happened, even though the army says we're going to look into this matter and see what happened. But after this, he had meetings with other political leaders in Maiduguri, asking questions. In fact, he stopped short of saying that, look, this is pure sabotage. Just looking at all of those. And this is even preceding whatever the army says they're going to do or whatever reports that the army is going to come up with. So he had that meeting amongst key political figures right there in Maiduguri where more questions were asked. And so the impression that leaves people with is that, look, so if he's of this opinion, clearly he's not happy with how some of these things went out. And so raises questions as to how then are they going to keep working together to move forward. So you don't want to see that friction between, all of those relevant authorities who are supposed to work together and ensure that there's a lot more in terms of getting more results when it has to do with security. Not that he doesn't have to, speak his mind, call it as it is, no matter how ox is God. But you know how some of these things work. They have to find a way.
And this is not the first time he's had this kind of, scenario play out around him, security threat. Then he, enters a confrontation with the Nigerian army saying, well, this is not how it should be. But, looking at the statements he made saying that, there seems to be some sabotage. It raises questions. This is not the first time we've heard that there's a possible sabotage around, fight against terrorism, even banditry and what have you. This is not the first time. And, some will say this might not be the last time we'll hear about. But I think this presents an interesting case. Now, this is the governor coming under attack yet again, and it just paints a picture of how, how much help the security situation in that region really needs at this point. If you look at Baga, because the governor was saying, if I got him correctly, was saying, well, there isn't any Boko Haram terrorist here, so why do we have attacks in Baga? That raises a lot of questions, really, because if the governor is saying we shouldn't be having this sort of attack, and yet, in the background, you can hear gunshots and what have you. It raises a lot of questions. And if there's anything I've learned during the course of this fight against insurgency in Nigeria is the fact that it seems as though the more you know, the less you actually know, because it seems we take 2 steps forward and 10 steps backward. He's asking the president to do something yet again. And I'm wondering, what more can the president do? Should he look at the service chiefs? Should we look at something else? And you look at Baga, it's actually close to Cameroon. To be fair enough, we don't seem to have all the answers for this one.
And the fact that it's not the first time raises the question again, do we even learn from whatever it is that happens to us at any given point in time? It raises so many questions. Here is the governor of a state asking that kind of question. And during that trip, you saw that the whole, when the previous clips that we saw that he was literally under gun attack. The governor of the state. So if the governor if the health, the safety of the governor of a state cannot be guaranteed, or he cannot guarantee his own safety, how can he guarantee the safety of the people that he is supposed to be governing? So he is calling out some people, and he later on you will see, if you go to our YouTube page, you'll see the full video, and he was asking questions of the commander of the unit at that point. The person was saying they have no Boko Haram gun. Okay, so what happened? Said that these people are just 10 of them or thereabouts. You said there are so few, and yet we are not able to get in that place and ensure peace. That there is peace. But I don't believe you that there is peace. Otherwise, why couldn't we go in there? So there are so many questions to ask here. as Kayode said, this is not the first time. I don't even know if it's the second time that this is happening. And it continues. And Borno is clearly not the only place. There are a number of other places that these things have been happening. Many of them we do not get to hear about. The ones we hear will make noise. What do we do about these things? It is becoming increasingly frustrating, and perhaps even getting to the point where people are wondering, wait a minute, are we really safe?
Well, big questions, isn't it? So let's go ahead and bring you what the dailies and how are they reflecting what's going on in just a moment. Okay, welcome back. Let's take you through some of the dailies. Now we'll start with Vanguard newspaper. NDDC heads take 30% of contract sums ascribed to a Senate report. Says contractors got 15% mobilization less than 24 hours after approval. NDDC raked 75 billion naira in 8 months from FG oil companies. Lies. Ponde not collecting kickback from contractors, NDDC. It should be eye-opener to President Buhari Pandev. So, this Senate report, they're getting more perspectives on this matter. Remember, the Senate had come up with after it was submitted on the floor of the Senate, and then they did come up with some recommendations, including the NDDC reporting directly to the president. They also spoke about how they needed to do away with the IMC, wasn't playing any particular role, and several other recommendations. And now you have the latest installments of some perspectives on that particular matter. So there you go. Right under that, there's this economy research reports. FG differ on major indices. Government projects deficit of 4.6 trillion naira. Analysts see what's this? Okay, I think I can't see this clearly now. Is it 5.5 trillion naira? I'm not sure. I think you should just take a look at that. So, but then GDP growth put at 4.2%, as analysts see that. Okay. And then inflation seen by government at 14.3%, and then analysts forecast 12.8%. So they've targeted single-digit inflation for years, but we're still doing double digits. And so, well, I don't know. Is anybody still talking about stimulus packages? What happened to that of the National Assembly? You know, they spoke about giving, electricity. Only for people to write in much later to us and say, guys, look, could you help us check? Look to see if
Whatever
they increase the
happened,
tariff.
honestly, and supply for a lot of people has dropped.
So,
And there are no prepaid meters.
Wonder. Wow. You just wonder. Does it pour now or what? So, there you go. They have a little bit of the politics here. PDP, APC trade accusations over violence, rigging plots. When will this ever end in Nigerian politics?
Never gonna end.
Okay, take a look at the back page now. Vanguard Sports. Why Osimhen chose number 9 jersey, ascribed to his agent, to get 2.5 million euros if Napoli win Champions League, 10 million euros if he wins Ballon d'Or.
Okay.
Napoli's like Lagos.
Okay.
Osimhen, he's bringing it home. Anything can happen, man. This is football.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Like politics?
Post-COVID era football, as a matter of fact. Forms drop, forms peak. We've seen that. So, you never know.
We look forward to that.
He's a top striker.
Yeah.
They said what? He's a 30-goal striker. He got 18 goals in Lille. Now, there you go. But then, good to also see that Ndidi, Iheanacho's market values reach joint all-time high. Nice, like the sound of that. That's Vanguard today.
We're definitely rooting for Osimhen, just to be clear. But let's take a look at the Nigerian Tribune's front page for you. The big story. $3.313 billion Chinese loans. Yeah, still in the news. Nigeria pays $461 million. Still owes $3.12 billion. That's right. You see that rider. Serap wants courts to compel President Buhari to publish details of government loans since 2015. And I think the logic here is, if those loans are in our name, then maybe we should know what those loans are and just get a breakdown so we'll all know what we're into, right? But you see some sort of breakdown right there on the front page of Nigerian Tribune, and it says status of loans obtained from China Exim as of March the 31st, 2020. Quite a list, but apparently this is not all. But you find more details on pages 4 and 6 of the Nigerian Tribune this morning. By the way, the amounts are in US dollars for that breakdown you see there. And right under that, some politics. Rotation can end after South gets power in 2023. That's right. And that statement is credited to Arawa youths. And you just wonder, 2023, what will happen then with this build-up we're getting? And you see, Nigerians should determine what happens in 2023. Finally, there's something that,
We can get a hold of.
That statement is credited to Babangida Aliyu, because that's what politics should be. The people should be at the forefront, making the decisions.
Well, politicians are also people. So
I said the people, not some people, just to be clear. You see more details on pages 23 and 26, because that's what we should have. But more stories. You see this one, trading Nigeria's sovereignty for loan, height of irresponsibility. That's credited to former Vice President. Atiku says, review all foreign loan agreements. PDP tells National Assembly. It seems this loan topic will be on for a while. Page 4.
Yeah. They'll schedule another hearing I think next week or thereabouts. So there'll be definitely more.
From what I've seen of hearings in recent times, you just expect one drama or the other. Hopefully, this one goes without drama.
Well,
why do I think you were watching it with popcorn while you were at home?
Maybe I was.
but the one that you just mentioned about the loans is actually very, very intriguing and scary. If we look at the headline of one of the papers last week that said that some of those things that signed on the sovereignty of Nigeria, put that on the back of that conversation we had with the Honorable Bagba, who was saying that some of the fine details are written in a language that our people do not understand. So it really is something that we hope.
People actually question that yeah, come on.
Yeah, well, of course. I mean, that's what he said. Of
They
course,
just thought, come
it's
on.
questionable, yeah. But I mean, maybe he's just been making a political statement. Maybe he knows what he's saying. We don't know. But of course, we haven't even seen the fine details of this, this agreement.
So all eyes on that hearing. And I recall the minister trying to break down that sovereignty clause, what it means or what it does not mean. But you know what? We'll wait for that hearing. More stories. Labour calls out workers for nationwide protest next week. Yeah, that's right. Over unresolved issues of corruption. That's new, really. I mean, calling a strike, or at least a nationwide protest, I should be clear, not a strike, over unresolved issues of corruption. That's new, and that's a good one, right?
Expectedly.
Okay, it's on page 4. I wonder what the placards will look like, but you know what? It's on page 4. And you see this one, quite sad.
You expect say no to corruption.
Resolve the corruption issues and the likes. But right next to that is a sad one, page 29. UN worried as explosives killed 230 Nigerians in 2 years. That's right. It's a really sad one. And most of them, of course, you understand, as a result of terrorism. This is something we're still trying to, put a lid on. But you find more details on page 29. A couple of other stories, really. It's a lot. You see this one, Ibadan Jericho Hospital section shut as health workers test positive for COVID-19. Just in case you thought COVID was done and dusted with, well, this is not time to put our guards down. It's on page 3 of the Nigerian Tribune this morning.
Especially when churches are going to open.
Oh, yes, exactly. From August the 7th, I think.
And
Social clubs.
1 week after. And schools
Eateries.
Opening partially 1 week after as well. The Guardian newspaper is next and leads with how e-learning flops in public universities. Find out what all of that is about. Inadequate infrastructure, lack of expertise hamper progress. Stakeholders list epileptic power supply, erratic internet network as challenges. This is a big one, especially when we're talking about e-learning, the lessons that COVID-19 has forced on us. Story continues on page 6.
I like the way you put that.
Yes, it actually forced it on us because we didn't see it coming.
Okay.
Right under the picture you see there of Nigeria Air Force personnel of the Operation Hadarin Daji during a luncheon to celebrate Eid Kabir. Airlines panic as FG withdraws 27 billion naira support. What that is all about, this really something you want to take a look at. Operators cut pilots' salary, sell assets to pay debts. Oh dear. Unions kick, serve ultimatum over wage cuts, and stakeholders rally carriers to survival strategies. Find out all of this on page 6 of the Guardian newspaper this morning. The sad part of this is it's going to seriously increase airfares, and who knows how seriously that will affect things. And a number of other stories on the side there, how compulsory BCG vaccination reduces COVID-19 spread and deaths. That's a study you may want to take a look at on page 3 of the Guardian newspaper this morning. And Furore over Buhari's unfriendly loan pact with China. Again, that story. Page 6 has that one. Poly students protest demand reopening of higher institutions within 14 days. Find that on page 7. Oh yes, Poly students protest demanding that higher institutions should be reopened within 14 days.
Especially when you see that e-learning flopped in some public universities.
Especially
so let's just
when you
do the
see
real learning, not that e-learning.
That's the Guardian this morning.
Well, you know, when you take a look at Daily Trust, for instance, there's some questions here that this is raising, because sometimes we gloss over some of these things. They say this is an exclusive now. Chemicals in preserved beans cause cancer, kidney disease.
Cool.
Now, you know how do you even know what they spray on the beans you buy? You know, the ones you don't see any weevil anymore, and sometimes who checks some of these things? Okay, which regulatory body is responsible to ensure that these things are safe? Remember when some of the product, the bean product that we even export, they put a lid on it for the EU, saying no, some of the content here not acceptable as of yet. Go sort that out. And now Daily Trust is coming with this perspective. Look at the writers now. Applied quantity exceeds limits for human consumption. Because sometimes, you know, something has happened, you just can't trace it. You just, you know, we gloss over a lot of things or dismiss it with a wave of hand, thinking, no, we're African men, it doesn't kill us. But it's time to check and check again. Guidelines on pesticides must be followed. Experts, so you then wonder, what are the guidelines?
Yeah.
There's been pockets of arrests here and there as to people who they say they saw spraying sniper in bins, innocently thinking it drives away pests and keeps everybody happy, the sellers, but unfortunately, it's got huge side effects. And then you see why I avoid inorganic chemicals in beans preservation, farmer. So again, the organic, inorganic, are they properly specified? What's the standards? So many questions.
But how can people also know? I mean, what should people do? Because you don't really know what that beans has gone through, what process it went through. So how can we actually ensure we're safe? Do I need to wash it like 10 times? Is there a test to even know these things? I think they should also empower people to know these things.
Add to that the fact that, you know, there are videos that have made the rounds in time past of, you know, sellers and dealers in beans, you know, spraying very dangerous chemicals on, you know, things, the beans, just as the Daily Trust has reported, to preserve the beans. The question then is, how do we even help ourselves to police this? Because how many are there at NAFDAC? You know, so who should be able to, you know, I don't know, help ourselves?
Look at some of the symptoms, just in case you're wondering. Health effects of chemicals in preserved beans include headache, dizziness, nausea, abdominal pain, cancer, vomiting, kidney disease. I know. You say, but some of these things we get it regularly.
Yeah.
How do we even know if it's associated with this? That's why it's a lot more dangerous. But look at this. Just beside this other headline now. Parents reject 25,000 naira COVID-19 test levy for students. So there you go. So when the schools open, 25,000 naira COVID-19 test levy. Oh boy. So who knows what other levy there will be on this one. That's Daily Trust this morning.
Well, Nigerian News Direct is next for you and takes a different look. Oil prices downturn. Nigerian breweries 11, PLC 21 others suffer decline in profit. I mean, just tied to oil prices downturn and their riders, total MIS record 883.67 million naira loss. And Nigeria begins journey to recession. You know, that sounds like, you know, a good thing, begins a journey, but no, it isn't. But we understand that, I mean, there are measures being put in place, and, you know, from what experts are saying, it could actually be quite worse. So we should, you know, take it as it comes. More details on page 5 of Nigeria News Direct this morning. And see this one right on top of that nameplate. FG to present PIB to Senate in 2 weeks. Remember that PIB that has been on and off for years? Well, it's coming back again.
It's just swimming through.
You know, so maybe this is an updated version. You know, some of those issues have been resolved. We'll see how this one sails through, if it will sail through this time around. More details on page 16 of Nigeria News Direct this morning. A couple of other stories for you, really. Well, let's leave it there this morning.
The interest of the leadership newspaper this morning is on 2023, and it leads with APC moves to whittle down PDP structure. Find that on page 4 of the paper this morning. Boni-led caretaker committee woos Atiku, Saraki, Kwankwaso, others back to governing party. Babangida Aliyu backs Mamandara, says 20 years of zoning has failed. My alliance with Akume instrumental to electoral victory. That's according to Gimade. On and on and on, you find those ones there. Right beside that picture, COVID-19 FG evacuates 170 Nigerians from Rwanda, Tanzania, Uganda.
Wow, we're everywhere.
We are everywhere, trust me. And this one is in Ondo State. Ondo fumigates schools ahead of resumption. Osun imposes 100,000 naira fine on worship centers. What for? Find out. The story is on page 8 of the leadership newspaper today.
Or look at Daily Times next. Decades after Nigeria's high-profile murders unresolved. Ooh, and some names come to mind readily.
Oh, yeah.
So, as a matter of fact, look, journalists have been included here.
Yeah.
Decades, prolific journalists. We just ask questions too, still unresolved. You know, so I think they say come to the territory, some of these hazards. But yeah, I mean, there's so many questions about all of those cases, and you know, the thing here, it just appears as though, you know how it appears as if we move on so fast from some issues, unlike in other crimes where it doesn't matter how long, it has to be investigated, and whenever there's a breakthrough, there is a breakthrough. To ensure that don't think that the law will not catch up with you, it will. But here, people think that after a while, we'll move on.
Which unfortunately, from this hints that seems to be the case right now. We seem to have moved on, you know, while there is no closure in many homes.
So there you go. That's a look at some of the dailies here this morning. We're back in a moment. Stay with us.
It is a peaceful rally as indigents of Imo State, largely made up of youths and businessmen, take to the streets of Owerri to canvass support for the governor. The group explains that the Hope Uzodimma administration needs more support to ensure the delivery of democratic dividends to the people of the state.
This is the first time in the history of governance that a governor will tell you that he is going to go into the roads for construction during the rainy season. Other governors told us to wait, let the rainy season end. But he never did that. He has gone into the hinterland. If you go around the city, you see that there are new construction going on everywhere. This man has done what? Notwithstanding the COVID-19 pandemic, they should trust Senator Hope Uzodinma. He is a man who is passionate about the development of Imo State. He means well. He is not greedy. He is compassionate. He is lovable. He is humble, and he means well for the state. I want Imo people to support him, to give him the support. It can only get better.
Away from the Solidarity rally, some APC stakeholders sat at news conference in Abuja, passed an absolute vote of confidence on the governor and some leaders of the party in the state.
We are satisfied with the developmental agenda of the governor represented in his 3 R's agenda: rehabilitation, reconstruction, and recovery. We urge all Imo State citizens to support the governor in his strive to achieve the set agenda.
As the people of Imo State await the dividends of democracy under this administration, indigents are optimistic that their expectations will be met speedily.
Welcome back. Well, we've got Ray Emma, who is the secretary of the People's Democratic Party, joins us from via Skype in Imo State. Good morning, and thank you for joining us today on the program. Well, I'm sure if you heard that report where they're thumping their chest now, passing the vote of confidence on the governor concerning his performance so far, infrastructural development. Now, what is the perspective of your party? Because if they say he's done roads, people expect it to be visible. Are you of the same view that some of these roads have been done, as the party says?
Good morning, Chamberlain. I was once a member of the Imo State House of Assembly. When members of the assembly begins to pass a vote of confidence on the speaker and leadership of that assembly, it means that there is trouble. A group of people who have paid money to gather in one hotel to pass vote of confidence on the governor speaks volumes. Clearly, that is not the wish, that is not the expectation, that is not what is on ground. I would have loved the situation where your station is taken around Imo State and see the deplorable state of roads in Imo State today. Hardly any road in Imo State today is passable. There is despair, there is hopelessness, there is anger, there is anguish in Imo State. For the past 4 months or thereabout, civil servants have not been paid. Imo State is better described today as the capital city of demonstrations. Hardly any day passes without civil servants demonstrating, pensioners demonstrating, lecturers demonstrating, supper deck staff demonstrating, market women demonstrating. Imo State is in a state where anger, anguish, poverty has taken over the state. So for a group of people to gather in a hotel and pass vote of confidence on the governor, it means that they don't have the interest of Imo people at heart. And by the way, can they say, for the Imo who was in government for 7 months, they have been in government for 7 months, can they lay claim to any physical infrastructure development that is on ground in Imo State today? What has happened to the educational sector? What is the state of our health in Imo State? How many test centers do we have for COVID do we have in the state today? The government, it appears on ground that the government is on strike. That's what is happening here. Even the House of Assembly members can't be paid their salary. They are even on strike. House of Assembly members are on strike because their salaries can't be paid. So anybody who is going to do...
Just hang on a minute to see if we can take on those issues one after the other. Let's bring in Mr. Enyinna Nogbo, who is the Commissioner for Lands in Imo State. He joins us on the line as well this morning. Good morning, and thank you for joining us today. Well, first, Mr. Emana wonders why there's got to be a vote of confidence other than letting the performance of the governor speak for itself. He says no roads whatsoever are being constructed, as your party claims, Mr. Nugu.
Good morning, channels. Good morning, Chamberlain and the team there. Good morning, Mr. Eman. Good morning, Nigerians. The position Emanga is advancing is born out of frustration. If stakeholders in Imo State, who are natives of Imo State,
Go ahead, just go ahead. We can hear you.
if they decide to pass vote of confidence on the activities, official activities of the governor, the popularly elected governor, Senator Hope Uzodinma, it is because they are happy with him. Are you saying that a former deputy governor of Imo State, former secretary to government of Imo State, former House of Assembly members, national officer of the party, that they are joking, they gathered in a hotel room? Where would the press conference be held? In their bedroom? We must bear in mind that PDP is still smarting under the loss of the loss and frustration of losing the governorship, by which the Supreme Court restored the mandate of Imo people in favor of Governor Hope Uzodinma. They are not even talking about the COVID-19 pandemic. They are trying to pass warped and partisan judgment against a performing government. Let us take one case. He talked about roads.
Go ahead.
We have Opera Nozier Street, Amiibo Street, we have Umuahia Street, we have in Aladdin Housing Estate, we have Mbano Street, we have the Catholic Church Street. They have all been completed, asphalted with drainage completely. Asking why there is no flooding at the Okigwe Road about to Government House that used to take the size of vehicles during rainy season. It is because this government has desilted all the manholes in a way that the flood water now passes through where they ought to pass through under the master plan of Owerri. Ask him, is he still angry that the state government was able to recover government vehicle given to him as a secretary of a political party to use? Is he unhappy? Is he unhappy because the governor has been able to do verification of pensioners without spending 495 million, which they spent, and did not find one false pensioner?
Yeah, but Mr. Onegbo, the controversy about the pensioners, which part of what he was alluding to, because there's been protests, pensioners saying, look, they have not been paid. So what is the current situation? Because, I mean, that protest, everybody saw that protest.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. The pensioners in Imo have been paid, but in April and in March and April, we were verifying directly the population of the pensioners. It's caused a delay in payment of March salary, which was not because there were no funds, but because the governor insisted on verification. And after that verification, they have all been paid. The people were instigated, some of them were instigated to come to the street, even on the 20th of a month, to come to the streets to agitate for payment of March salary. But it is sorted out because the government has saved over 2 billion naira from that process. Now, just oppose this with the time when the illegal Ihedioha administration was in charge. They brought a consultant from Lagos who was taking 20% of the pension budget, and they were paying 490-something million to the consultant. We have saved that. They are not happy. Are they unhappy that we now have civil servants who are paid according to their number? Okay. When the government published the list of those who inflated pension funds, has anybody contradicted that publication? The answer is no.
Well, you also heard him say, are you saying that what he alleged, what Mr. Emana alleged the other time, that civil servants have not been paid is not true? Are you saying that there are no civil servants in Imo State that are being owed? Just to clear that.
I have mentioned the roads. Now, there are no civil servants being owed. Any civil servant who has passed through the process of verification, bringing your data, including your BVN, receives his or her money through bank alert system. There are some issues where certain persons were encouraged not to pass through the process by the cabal that was benefiting from that problem. So those people are going through the process of presenting their bank details, their BVN number, and they are receiving their payments that are owed now. But it is not up to 10% of the civil servants. Let the Civil Servants Union contradict what I'm saying. Let the Nigerian Labour Congress contradict what I'm saying. Let the Union of Local Government Workers contradict what I'm saying.
Let's bring in Mr. Emana now to widen this conversation. Yes, you have responded to some of the allegations, but Mr. Emana, clearly he thinks that there is actually a need for that vote of confidence, and you have said that you were part of the State Assembly, and when there's a vote of confidence being passed, that means there is trouble. And it begs the question, is that something you probably did, or what do you mean by that, basically, saying there is trouble?
The APC in Imo State is in crisis. They have 3 factions, and each faction is laying claim to legitimacy. And what you see is a play out of one faction trying to give confidence to themselves. Having said that, let me also remind you, you have a state correspondent in Imo State. Send your correspondent to go to the to take him to the roads he claims have been done. Is it the Futo Yagba road that is unpassable? Is it Olu road? Is it the Uraba road that they have abandoned at Emmanuel College? Which state road have they done, asphalted and with drainage? So let your correspondent go and let him go and take your correspondent and show them the state of these roads. The APC government in Imo State, it's a government of propaganda. He's talking about fraud. They came in the government during the dry season. The flood challenge in Owerri was sorted out by Ihedioha when he paneled a committee of experts from all walks of life to study the perennial flooding system in Owerri. And thereafter, all the channels were opened. And that is why today there is no major flooding going on. Even though they are busy covering those open channels have been covered again by waste. So it has nothing to do. What we hear in Imo State all the time is, let me tell you what they do, to tell you how unfair they are to Imo people. The other time the Commissioner for Information came on air as far back as 3 months ago that all civil servants have been paid, all pensioners have been paid, only for the governor to contradict him the day he addressing leaders in Imo State that people were being owed, and the reason for their being owed is because of they were doing verification. Mark you, the commissioner had already told us that everybody has been paid. Today, the Commissioner for Land is also telling us that everybody has been paid. Again, I challenge you to ask your correspondent in Imo State to interview workers in Imo State, and you'll be shocked what will be revealed. What they do, which is very unfair, is they go to ministries and pick a few individuals, pay them, and parade them on air to claim they have paid civil servants, when in actual fact, the totality and majority of Imo civil servants are being owed upwards of 5 to 6 months. And I challenge him. And if you have a debate for me, where we will present, where Imo people will present, if these things have been done, why are civil servants protesting? Why are pensioners protesting and slumping in front of government house? Only a few days ago, the Commissioner of Land Information threatened that any more demonstration in Imo State, that they will arrest the people. Why is he threatening to arrest people? You see, what we have in Imo State is that when Imolites complain, instead of this government taking a responsibility and addressing their complaint, they will say it is opposition. I have had cause to challenge this government that for no reason other than propaganda, they have the capacity to even blame opposition when they are hungry. When they can't feed themselves, they say opposition is responsible while we are hungry. That's the kind of, every day they are busy churning out one propaganda or the other. There is nothing happening. The government of Imo State is on recess. We don't see them. They don't, even the people, even the appointees, their own appointees, SAs, VAs, have not been paid for more than 6 months after appointment. And we are the citizens of this state. We stay here. We work together. We eat together. We meet. They come on television and smile, only to come around and beg and tell you a different thing clearly that nothing is happening. And nothing is happening in Imo State. It is unfortunate. Of course, we don't expect anything different. They came here without the mandate of Imo people. And that is what they do every day is to pick out opposition elements, they threaten them, intimidate them, arrest them, charge them to court. That's the only achievement they have recorded for the past 7 months. But
all right, Mr. Man, just a minute. Okay, Mr. Logbu, now you, the governor, having assumed office, there was his first broadcast wherein he said that that they are going to pursue a policy of comprehensive Medicare with primary and preventive components which shall achieve 75% coverage of the populace across 27 local government areas within the first 2 years. What has he done about this so far?
Yes. Thank you. If you come to Imo, you will notice that the local government, we have 27 local governments, and these 27 local governments as of today have in their custody fully equipped ambulance service. We have the intervention for the COVID-19 pandemic that has also brought in additional ambulances for Imo people. It is not so much to talk about political opposition when the people on ground know that things are getting better in Imo State. In the last 1 month, the state government has distributed palliatives in all the local government areas on more than 3 occasions. There is a union called NOLGE, National Union of Local Government Employees. If Mr. Manga is talking about payment of salaries, I think the better authority will be the union head, the Association of the Civil Servants, and the NOLGE in Imo State. I challenge him to tell us where the union has made any statement, or the NLC has made any statement saying there is selective payment of workers in Imo State. There is nothing like that. He talked about Owerri Road. He should remember that Ihedioha Illegal Land Government awarded that road and paid 70% upfront to one China construction company. That road has remained like that because the contractor alleged that despite the 70% paid him, he had to refund 40% to the powers that be then. That's why the road is like that. We have just re-awarded that road, and work has started on that road in the last 3 days. Let him tell you whether Douglas Road, he has not been passing through Douglas Road, if the road is not done. Let him tell you that despite the rainy season, that the roads in Aladima I mentioned have not been done. The thing is that this textbook opposition has to stop. Imo people's welfare is paramount in the mind of the governor. Right. We must stop the use of consultants. Okay. So the health issue is being addressed. We have the best record in Southeast for the COVID-19 epidemic, and everybody knows that Imo is doing well in the health sector.
Okay, so I think most of our conversation has centered around road construction. I'm thinking a lot of people will be wondering, is governance just about road construction? Yes, there's a lot of work that needs to be done there. But yes, we've touched on health. But I recall also, the governor, when he came into office, some of the promises he made, because it's on this we'll measure his performance. And I recall he talked about, a science-driven education system, focus on skills acquisition, innovation, manpower development, and entrepreneurship. And he codenamed this the Imo State Education Opportunity Program, saying it will be established. And not just at the state capital, other areas, there are youths that could, do well with jobs and skills acquisition. The question is, how far has the governor gone in this light?
Is it for me?
Yes, absolutely, Mr. Onu.
Okay. Now let us take it on a basis of assessment. Governor Hope Uzodinma has been in the saddle since the 15th of February. So we haven't even exhausted the period Ihedioha has spent governing Imo illegally. But if you come to Imo State, education is our best and the largest industry. We have a state university, Imo State University. We now have a University of Agriculture, fully licensed and operational at Umuagbo, courtesy of Governor Hope Uzodimma. You, like he said, you have your correspondent in Owerri. In Imo State University, despite that students are home because of the COVID-19 pandemic, the structure of the university is working very well. We have just announced a calendar for our students who are in the exit classes who will take school certificate exams and NATO. We have also commenced the rehabilitation of certain primary school, secondary school buildings. So the teachers who are the teachers in our school system, you can interview, you will find out that we have averaged a payment of more than 80% of the teachers in Imo State, subject to those who have not verified, like I said. So judging the governor on less than 7 months being in office, talking about performing expectations or plans for 2 years is unfair. But given the limitations of the COVID-19 pandemic, this government has done so well. Despite the
when is the other part of the verification going to be concluded?
I think what is outstanding, I think by the end of, I think it's almost over, because by the end of August, everybody who is truly on the list of unemployment with Imo State University should have done the verification.
Okay, because before now, there was IBC and some of those other agencies that during Labor Workers Day, they spoke up saying they had not been paid. But we'll come back to that. Mr. Mara, could you go ahead and, because this says, look, about now, this is going to be over, and then the remaining 20% of the verification that has not been wrapped up, I think it should be wrapped up by now, and then they will go ahead and pay. Is that what you were referring to when you said they had not been paid? So we'll see how we can sort that out, just getting some disruptions on that connection. But let's get back to the commissioner now. You know, when those protests happened, and then you wanted to sort out the verification, were you referring to before the Workers' Day or after the Workers' Day?
Before the Workers' Day, there was a protest by a motley crowd of hired hands. Even those who claim to be pensioners, if you look at the video, you will see that more than 60% of them were people under 40 years. So that happened before May 1. And the union, after May 1st, Workers' Day, confirmed the receipt of payments by Imo State government for their members. I am still insisting that Ray Manga cannot be concerned about the welfare of Imo workers more than their associations and their unions. And I think the best authority will be the chairman of those associations in Imo, not Ray Manga, who is angry that we have taken over by the grace of God. So the important thing is, why are we talking about only Imo in a country of 36 states?
Just jump in and ask you this, because, I mean, on Workers' Day itself, we have, I mean, the report is right there if you check it out. The NLC, because you were saying that you won't see anywhere where they said anything about, you know, not being paid. But it turns out that during that Workers' Day, the state chairman of NLC, Comrade Austin Chilaku, did say that they had been owed. He listed some of those agencies that were affected, including the IBC, Agriculture Development Program, that's the ADP, Imo State Water Corporation, the secondary school teachers, who they say they were being owed. Were they not being owed when this protest happened on May 1?
1st of May was 2 months ago. 1st of May was more than 2 months ago. In fact, 3 months ago.
There was no such thing at the time. That's why we're bringing it up.
Now, what I would have expected is that since May 1st, you would have interviewed Chilaku again. As at that time, IBC, for example, their system was that the government would give a bulk check to IBC to pay the workers.
Okay,
But
pardon
this
me, I
government
understand we
said
have
we
Mr.
are not
Maya
going
back.
to
We need to bring him on before we wrap up. Mr. Maya, could you go ahead and just give your response as we wind down?
I want to remind Barrister Honorable that they came into office on January 14th and not February 14th. I want to also remind him when he talks about I should ask the unions, the leadership of the unions. The same law that he's talking about took Aquatoria to threaten this government that they will go on strike. When he's talking about the leadership, he's talking about compromised leadership of some of the unions. We are talking about the body of the civil servants, the citizens of the state who are supposed to earn salaries. These are the people we should talk about and not. And he's talking, as we speak, IBC staff, he's talking about health. The teaching hospital staff, the teaching hospital, Imo State Teaching Hospital at Olo, they have been on strike for the past 5 months and they are being owed for 7 months. He's talking about health. You're talking about what they said they have announced calendar for exams. That is an achievement for any there. That is unfortunate. But Ihedioha came in and started 5 vocational training institutions, 4 vocational training institutions. The buildings commenced, work was in progress. All those things have been abandoned. What we are saying is not about propaganda. It's not about talk. Let this government do a documentary of their achievements in the past 7 months they have been in power, and not talk about opposition. I have a responsibility. I am a citizen of Imo State. I have children. If this state is good, I will benefit. My family benefits. Everybody will benefit.
All right, Mr. Maya, we do thank you. We need to wrap up at this point. Ray Maya is the Secretary of the People's Democratic Party in Imo State. We've also joined by Mr. Onegbu, who is the Commissioner for Lands in Imo State. We will be back and focus on another matter in just a moment. Stay with us. Welcome back. Well, now we're turning our attention to, it's got to do with crude revenue, stolen crude. But as a matter of fact, just a little bit of a background here. Now, there was this policy document which was titled Stemming the Increasing Cost of Oil Theft to Nigeria, published by the Nigeria Extractive Industry Transparency Initiative, NETI. That document stated that crude oil and refined products worth $41.9 billion were stolen from Nigeria in the last 10 years. The breakdown shows that we lost $38.5 billion on crude theft alone. That's $1.56 billion on domestic crude and another $1.8 billion on refined petroleum products between 2009 and 2018.
Well, that's right. Now, to put this in perspective, that's an average of $11 million daily, which translates to $349 million in a month and about $4.2 billion annually. And that's to crude and product losses arising from stealing, process lapses, and pipeline vandalism.
Let's break it down even further. Figures from government put the loss at between 150,000 to 250,000 barrels per day. But data from private studies estimate the figure to be between 200,000 and 400,000 barrels per day. This implies that Nigeria may be losing up to a fifth of its daily crude oil production to oil thieves and pipeline vandals.
Recently, some allegations have been leveled against the NNPC by an oil trading firm, Semano Sade CV. In a letter to the group managing director of the NNPC, Melekari, they are demanding 5% reward for exposing the diversion and thefts of 48 million barrels of crude oil. Now, we're joined this morning to look into some of these allegations by Mr. Mike Ozekome, Senior Advocate of Nigeria. He joins us from our studios in Abuja. We also do have Evie Richards, who is of the Anti-Corruption Observatory, also joining us via Zoom to just give their perspectives on this matter. Let's start with Mr. Ozekome. Good morning and thank you again for joining us today. Now, this letter is
Thank you very
making the
much.
rounds by this group, Semanu. Lawyers have written, I think from the Lords and Temple, demanding certain things from the government. From your perspective, because they were quite categorical that some of these things, in fact, that it is indeed true. What have you found going through these documents?
Well, the documents are everywhere online. I've also read Chief Afe Babalola, Senior Advocate of Nigeria's letter. He replied to these documents. I've read it also in the hard copies of Punch and other newspapers last week. And I think the problem we are having now is that with the advent of online publications, many salacious, many untrue statements are put out there. Once some people are mentioned, some people's names are mentioned and indicted, people jump to conclusions. So we have become so lazy, intellectually lazy, that we cannot do some mental, some rigorous calculation or interrogation of issues to know whether they are true or not, once we see the banner headline. So when these allegations first came out, I was very inquisitive. I became interested. I said, 48 million barrels of crude oil leaving Nigeria and stored somewhere in the Republic of China. That would be a big deal for Nigeria that is grappling with economic challenges. And that made me to start doing some write-up and some interrogation of these issues. Is it true? But by the time I got Afe Babalola's own reply to their lawyer's letter, I discovered that this was nothing but a case of international cross-border fraudsters trying to dupe Nigeria in the name of 5% of a so-called $2.5 billion whistleblowing fact that they found this $48 million, a million barrels stored somewhere in China. Now, $2.5 billion at the current exchange rate is about 1.2 trillion naira. And the company is saying it is entitled to 5% of that, which is $125 million. That will give you about 60 billion naira of the Nigerian people's money, not government's money, because when I hear people say government's money, government does not have money. It's money belonging to the Nigerian people. 60 billion naira, if shared for 36 states of the Federation, each state will get about 1.66 billion naira, which can build a big teaching hospital in each of the states of Nigeria. So I started to interrogate, could this be true? How did the 48 million barrels pass through Nigeria? Which port? Through which port? How did they land? What was Nigeria's OPEC cut for that period in 2015, July 2015? I'm aware, and if you Google it, the facts are there. As of July 2015, Nigeria's OPEC cut for oil, Nigeria was producing less than 1.6 million barrels per day, which means in 30 days, it will produce exactly 48 million barrels. So what this company, Semanu, is saying, or was saying, is that a whole month's production of crude oil left the Nigerian shores and landed in China without any trace whatsoever. For God's sake, if we interrogate matters rigorously, intellectually, this is not possible. Where will Nigeria have money to go to the FAAC, the Federation Allocation Accounts, to be shelved under Section 162 of the 1999 Constitution for the 36 states and 774 local government areas in Nigeria. If a whole month's generated crude oil suddenly leaves Nigerian shores.
All right, let me just butt in here, because earlier on we tried to give a background, and we took statements from NATI, and still on NATI, about last year, a statement was put out that crude oil theft cost Nigeria 22 million barrels of oil just in the first half of 2019. So I can imagine in a year that would be about 44 million barrels. And you said that this seems impossible, but you and I know that a lot of things seem impossible until they happen. So looking at that in context, don't you still think that this is a possibility? Because NATI has said that crude oil theft costs us millions of barrels yearly.
Millions of barrels yearly, right? This was said to have been taken to China in 2015, right? The Chinese government with a regulated economy must know. If you read both letters, both from their lawyers and Afe Babalola's Chambers lawyers, and compare both facts, the Chinese government itself came out and denied it, that there was no such crude oil stored anywhere in their shores. They even went to United Nations to say so, that they don't have that evidence. Where is the evidence? There should be evidence of the movement of this oil. Who bought? Who sold? To whom? How did it get there? And if you interrogate the documents more, which are available online,
okay,
they wrote letters July and August 7th, 7 July, August 7, 2015, saying these barrels of crude oil were in China and that they were interested in buying it. They made an offer to buy these 48 million barrels. Then they went a step further. By August 2015, they said, we are no longer interested in buying this crude oil. We don't want to buy again.
Okay,
just
a minute, pardon me to jump in now.
Corruption war.
Looking at all of these documents, yes, it will get people curious, wanting to find out what really is going on, whether it's true or not. But one wonders, Mr. Oyewole SAN is their counsel, and he wrote, because if they say that he is writing here saying that his client has documents, including bank transfer details, names of vessels and their captains, to show that the stolen products have been illicitly sold by some officials of the government and the NNPC, who are said to be involved in the implementation of the presidential directive to investigate matters pertaining to stolen crude. Is it that the documents or whatever it is that they have or shown to him, he might not have been real, original, for him to take this on by himself? What is?
The documents I will want you to interrogate these two documents side by side. It's easy to make allegations. When you have to prove. By the documents from the lawyers from Afe Babalola's Chambers, they said these letters you have put are themselves fake letters, allegedly written in 2015, bearing a logo of NNPC, Shell Petroleum Development Company, Bonny Terminal, and then the federal government coat of arms. They said no letterhead of NNPC is like that. There's nothing like that. That NNPC has a letterhead with its headquarters in Abuja that does not have the federal coat of arms, does not have Bonny Terminal, does not have Shell Development, does not have oil company. I have had the privilege of doing some oil and gas matters over the years, for more than 25 years, where I have not been able to yet come across such a letterhead. So it is clear to me, based on this, that some international fraudsters are at work. I get such letters every day. People tell me to take matters to court.
Okay, just
that
one moment, Mr.
Ozepome.
Let's take this
somewhere.
to Mr.
And that
Ivie
we
Richards
want the-
just to have his own take on this. We'll come back to you just to have his own take on all of this. Mr. Ivie Richards, from your own observatory, what have you taken, how have you taken this whole thing on board? Stolen 48 million barrels, NATI's report. There's also a report from Chatham House about, stolen crude oil over the years in Nigeria. From your observation, what have you seen? How do you take this all on board?
Well, what actually posed the serious challenge to me is why the NNPC took so long after receiving the consent from the whistleblower to inform the anti-graft agencies to swing into action to investigate the issue. When you receive a consent, the first thing you do is assess it. After assessing the concern, then you move on to addressing the concern. As far as I know, the NNPC is neither an intelligence agency, nor is it an anti-graft agency. So a concern of such magnitude was received in the month of June 2015. And the anti-graft agencies were not immediately contacted to go and verify the veracity of that concern. They did their own assessment and concluded that there was no iota of truth until a lot of pressure became applied on them by the whistleblower. And it was at that time that they now decided, okay, let us begin to address the concern that this whistleblower raised, and for which they decided to contact the anti-graft agencies. For me, that's a serious challenge that I would like to be looked into. Why the delay? That's number one. On the other hand, the documents that came from the whistleblower, it has names. Of the names that are there is only two people, only one, because the document that came did not even bear Baru's name, the one that I saw. But the names that are there, they are all of them are alive. They are here in Nigeria. So what interrogation has been done thus far? What manner of investigation has been done thus far? And I'm also very curious that all these issues would not have taken this much, given the fact that the president himself is the Minister of Petroleum and can compel the height of the intelligence agency that we have in Nigeria to swing into action. I'm aware that the NIA has a branch in the mission in China. So it was not going to be difficult to verify whether we actually have crude in China stored in tanks and all of that. But the whistleblower says that there are documents. The documents are there. The document that came from Bonny Terminal has the name of an engineer that signed it. That engineer is a Nigerian. Has he been contacted? Has he made any kind of comments? So, it's neither here nor there.
All right, Mr. Richards, let's try to see if we can get here in this, just to get some form of definitive response to this. Because if you see the statement from the NNPC saying that, well, looking at the narrative, it is impossible. 48 million barrels of crude. I mean, how does that even make sense? That's the narrative the NNPC is putting forth. But from the evidences you have seen, the narrative is such possible? Because I think that's a major bone of contention. Is it possible to have conducted such operation?
One thing I remember very clearly is that at the inception of this administration, the president himself was on a daily basis saying that Nigerian crude
has been stolen, is being stolen. And I think because of that, a little committee was set up to look at how the crudes are being stolen. Listen, you know, we know those who produce crude in Nigeria. The NPDC is one under the NNPC. And then we have the joint venture partners. They are all known. How is this, to understand how the crude leaves when we know the major operators is a question that we need to unravel. But looking at the data from NAITI, this country, anything can happen. I won't be able to say, no, let us not look into this concern, because at 1.6 million barrels a day, 48 million barrels will have been equal to a month's production of Nigeria. It's not impossible that $48 million may have left the shores of Nigeria. But to confirm that, exhaustive investigation has to be carried out to ascertain whether this is truth or false. The lawyer to Lord and to Samano is a Nigerian. The lawyer to the NNPC is a Nigerian. Both parties are local, even though they have international players. So it's an issue that we can actually scrutinize and not to jump into conclusion that this is not possible. For me, I think that conclusion is hasty.
Mr. Ozekome, back to Mr. Ozekome, these issues that are being raised, you said it's impossible to come up with 48 million barrels of crude oil from Nigeria to China. But from data that we have shown you, 150 to 250,000 barrels per day are lifted. Isn't it possible to have done this over time, over maybe 6 months, 1 year? Because from the reports that we read to you from NAITI, there was a review carried out between 2009 and 2018 that shows that this was done over about 10 years. Isn't it possible to have done that over the years?
It is possible for that. Just a moment. It is possible. Don't forget that this allegation came up in July 2015. And the 48 million barrels was already said to be there by that July 15, 2015. We are not talking of between then and now. I want us to put this in a historical perspective. That is why I think my brother there, who is speaking on the other side, did not appear to have also seen the other documents. He probably saw the documents put out by the other lawyers he called Tempo and Partners, and appeared not to have seen the ones put out by Afe Babalola. In the ones put out there, it was made clear that the federal government, I'm not a fan of the federal government, everybody knows that. That's why I decided to scrutinize this matter, that they sent a delegation to China to find out whether this was true. That they could not find the truth from the Chinese government that such barrels were there. That they then contacted the EFCC, the police and the DSS to make their own investigations. That they did and came out blank. That nothing like that was found. That one DIG, Anthony Ogbizi, wrote the report that the entire allegation was a scam.
But just one moment, Mr. Ozekome. There are many issues that one can look at as far as this is concerned. Just one moment. If you would also go into, there are several documents that one can reference in this. We've talked about the NAITI document. We've talked about the Chatham House document. And we have also looked at a number of other things. In 2018, the National Economic Council received a report from KPMG that $8.1 trillion naira was not, given to the federal government by the NNPC and 16 other agencies. There is also the 2016 Auditor General's report that record that there are certain monies that were not remitted to the federal government as and when due. As a matter of fact, one of them was said to be unconstitutional deductions running to 900 and something million naira. So with all of these figures, doesn't it lead credence to certain lacuna that the NNPC may have, let out
to make all these things possible and difficult for people to believe that there is no such thing as 48 million barrels of oil missing?
Yes, that is what I mean. I call it media trial. Media trial is a trial that does not give the other person a fair hearing. And that is why I've been against it. That is why I've been against it. Now, if you hear one side, then you hear the other. All these are possible. But the question is not one of possibility. Has it happened? That is where we are. And they are saying that these same people have since been charged to court. I do not know whether you have seen that aspect of it, for trying to scam the federal government of Nigeria of money they did not earn. They said they had blown a whistle, as a result of which they are entitled, allegedly, to $125 million, which is 60 billion naira. But if you look at their letters of 2015, they were merely saying they wanted to purchase that same oil, not to blow a whistle to help the government. The whistle-blowing policy, I have had clients who have blown whistles. I have urged some to go and blow whistle. Some have blown when they did not want to pay them. I went in, I stepped in, you must pay. Now, the whistle-blowing policy of the federal government of Nigeria, to the best of my knowledge, came into being about November, December 2016. It was not then in operation. You couldn't have been blowing a whistle for something in futuro, something in the future, that like Nostradamus, the man who saw tomorrow, you did not know such a policy will exist. Then you are blowing a whistle ahead. Meanwhile, you wanted to buy this oil. When it was that one was not working, you turned around and said it was not whistle blowing.
Pardon me, we're out of time, but we need to get Ms. Yvette to also give us quickly just his closing thoughts before we wrap up. Mr. Richards, could you please go ahead and just give us your perspective before we wrap up?
Well, I saw the letter that came from Afe Babalola and company. My concern really is that that letter was written only about 2 days ago. The issue we are looking at occurred since 2015. And I think that letter also accused the whistleblower of so many anomalies. And I think that letter has been compelled due to pressure on the federal government. That's not to say that this thing is real anyway. But my final take will be that the whistleblower, first and foremost, did not blow the whistle to the right channel, because the Ministry of Finance, Federal Ministry of Finance, would have been the first port of call if it were looking to that policy.
Richard, well, the thing is, if they went to court and the DSS and the FCC are looking into those matters, well, those are agencies saddled with such responsibility, but we'll see what eventually plays out, what they decide at the end of the day. But we do thank you both, Mr. Michael Zekoma, SAN, and Vivier Richard, Anti-Corruption Observatory. Thank you both for talking to us on this matter. We're back in a moment. Please join us again. Well, this particular clip made the rounds online. But take a look. Do you remember this?
I said, Mommy, calm down.
I should calm down.
Yes.
I should calm down.
Yes, Mommy, angry.
Now, there were several reactions, and there still are, about that particular matter. Well, in fact, lawyers, remember Lagos State government or governor, yes, did say he wanted to meet him, and there's been clips ever since of the dad talking to him, but there are other perspectives as well on this matter. But it's got to do with law and rights. Yeah, that's why we've got two lawyers joining us this morning. Well, Mr. Biodun Chugbihele joins us as a legal practitioner, and just right beside him, Monday Obani, who is a former second VP of the NBA. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us today on the program. Mr. Chugbihele, let me start with you. When you saw that video, I mean, as a lawyer, what was your thinking?
My conclusion is that the young man has been abused by the mother by posting such a private picture, a private video online for the whole world to see. Although she denies she didn't mean it, the fact that she filmed something that is private is child abuse and abuse of the privacy of the child. The child is entitled to his privacy.
Okay, now that's as a lawyer, but as a parent, seeing that video, what came to mind?
Myself, I will never do that for my child. I will never post. I do punish my children. My children are all grown up. Now I'm a grandfather. I punished my children, but in those days there were no videos, but I wouldn't have videoed my children. I do paste my children on social media, but I paste postings that shows positive aspects of their life. Like when my children graduated from the university, when my children were called to the bar, when they won prizes in primary school, when they won prizes in secondary school. I will not paste the picture of a child accused of stealing. I will not even video it. I never did anything. I did not humiliate my children. Even when they did negative things, I never told people. It's a private affair between me and my children. I think that is the responsibility of a parent to protect the privacy of the child. That's my view.
Let's flip to Mr. Ubani now. Mr. Ubani, what's your first take? What was your first take when you saw the video?
Yeah, when I saw it, thank you, Ayo, for having me. Thank you, Chamberlain, and my brother. I saw the positive vibe that was actually shown by that video. The positive vibe I'm making reference to is the ability to enter into a player of allocutus when you are before a court of law and you are found guilty, and then the court gives you an opportunity for you to make a plea, for leniency in terms of sentencing. That is what that young boy was actually engaged in, and with his age, at the age of 4, with the brilliance shown in negotiating ability, what actually caught my fancy. And I wasn't surprised that the governor of Lagos State was also clearly caught with that intriguing brilliance that was shown by that young boy in negotiating his way out of punishment, and talking to the mom. And let me say this, the mom gave us a clear graphic picture of what actually happened. She never set out to expose the boy through the social media. What happened was that she has always been having this issue with this boy who engages her in this kind of brilliant negotiating ability. And she filmed that particular this in order to convince her sister, who is resident in America, to see how this young man has always done anytime he offends the mom. And so there was no intention in order to expose.
But Mr. Bani, two things. Now, first is, if it was recorded for private consumption, as you said, show to the sister, and it ends there, perhaps it might not have been an issue. But when you hear the boy even asking, are you actually recording me? Isn't that some sort of objection? And then for the fact that they also hit the social media, and there are questions there about whether or not that should have been done, the propriety of it hitting the social media.
As I said earlier, the era of my Leonard Senior was era, the old era, the archaic era where there was no social media. We are in the era of social media, and without social media, we wouldn't have even seen how brilliant that boy shown in negotiating his way out. And of course, career and guidance counseling people now will come in to actually locate where this boy will be, whether he's going to be a lawyer or he's going to be an actor or he's going to be a police officer and all that. So we are in an era of social media, and we should deal with it. We shouldn't run away from the reality. And as I said earlier, the mom never set out to video this young man in order to expose him to the world. He just wanted this particular incident to be recorded so that the sister can understand what she has been saying. And but
Mr. Bani, you know what they say. The road to hell is paved with good intentions. But let me bring in Mr. Tuguyel on this. Is it a question of parenting style, or were there actually legal issues, as Mr. Bani seems to disagree with your position?
The situation here is not only legal, invasion of the child's privacy, it's also moral. It's immoral for a mother to discipline a child and to video the discipline. I have children. I have a grandchild. She's very beautiful. And from time to time, I tell her she's beautiful. But she objects to it. And I asked, what's the objection? And she told me, whenever I say she's beautiful, that means I'm saying that the sister is ugly. I mean, that's the level of reasoning of a child of 8. And I tell her she's beautiful. I want you to be a model. I want you to be a beauty queen in the mode of great models and beauty queens. But she objects to it. So I learn to respect her. I don't refer to her beauty anymore. My first child is grown up, right? I like posting her. I like posting her picture when she was called to the bar. It gives me joy. It's supposed to encourage other people to take good care of their children. But she's opposed to it. So I don't interfere with their privacy again. That child will not be happy if he grows up and he sees that picture whereby he's depicted as a thief. Those are very grave allegations the mother is making, whether she intended the video to go viral or not. How can you post your child and be making allegations of criminality? What will be the future of that child? That child will be watched carefully.
There are a lot of people.
Manipulate.
Right. I think this conversation really centers around, parenting styles and rights, basically, what we should learn from this and what we should take away. Because how children are treated would, spell a lot for the society at large eventually. But, there's some people that saw this video and it was comic relief for them. They sat back, laughed at it, sent it to others and just thought, wow, this is an amazing young man, doing what children do every other day. I mean, this is something you find, around families and what have you. And they say, you know what, maybe every other person should even calm down and, enjoy that video. But apparently you seem to disagree. So really, don't you think this is just a case of let's just watch it and let it move on?
Is that meant for Tuguyeli?
Mr. Tuguyeli.
Is that meant for me?
There's nothing to calm down about. There's nothing to calm down about. The child has been mocked in public. We should not celebrate evil. It is evil to bring grave allegation of stealing and to put in the worldwide view. There's nothing to celebrate in that child. Actually, that child must be watched. He's a manipulator. He's not a locutus. He's a manipulator in the mold of some of our politicians in Nigeria. That child should be watched carefully so that he will not go on in his evil ways. There's nothing to celebrate. It's in Nigeria that we celebrate evil. We celebrate thieves in Nigeria. Somebody who steals from the government or steals from one place or the other, those are the people we celebrate, we give chieftaincy title. That child should be watched. It's not to be celebrated. The governor should call that woman and reprimand him. That is not the way to deal with a child. The the discipline of a child is meant to be private. It's not even meant to be shared with a sister abroad.
Mr. Ubani, this is for you now, Mr. Monday Ubani. This division on this matter seems to be running deep. Do you think we're taking things too far? On the one hand, are the moral issues, that have been raised by Mr. Tuguyeli, which many people may also align with. On the other hand, are the legal issues. Some are even going as far as referencing NAPTIP, referencing the Child Rights Act and all of that. Do you think we're going too far, or these are valid issues that should be given credence?
There is nothing valid about all the issues. People are making a mountain out of a molehill. And I tell you this, my learned senior there is going to extreme. In one instance, in one break, he was talking about the child being abused. In another instance, he's talking about a child now manifesting that he has stolen or he's going to be like Nigerian politician. For God's sake, that boy is 4 years. And a boy of 4 years is incapable of stealing. All of us pass through that process as a child, because the Bible says that every child dwells bosom of foolishness. But the rod of correction will drive away that foolishness. So what has happened is that the mom did what she supposed to do in African setup when a child does something that is wrong? You correct that child. It's an African culture. I know a lot of people who are in Europe who are bringing their children back to the African continent in order for them to be brought up properly. We don't, encourage the white man's way of child upbringing. So that child was being disciplined by the mom in a proper manner. There was no abuse in the first place. I don't even agree also that that boy, has done anything that is wrong. He only said, "Mommy, last chance. I have offended you. I am very, very sorry. Please do not in any way beat me. Please calm down." And he demonstrated that brilliance of, "Mommy, calm down. You cannot in any way kill me, all because I have done something wrong, all in a bid to correct me. Calm down and think. There are other better ways of child upbringing. One of them is the issue of talking with that child, counseling. And that is the way we ought to bring our children. Not every time you use rod, beating of that children, bringing so much pain and affliction upon that child. So the issue of calming the mommy, use another method of bringing you up. That boy showed his intelligence.
Yeah, so Mr. Bani, let me ask you this. Just hold on, Mr. Bani. I'm not sure anyone is saying that parents shouldn't discipline their words. But questions as to now the material is out there. There'll be good perspectives and negative ones. So when some other people see that and approach the child, do we think that he's going to be able to handle perhaps the impressions that people have or how he may be confronted moving forward? Because that's part of what Mr. Tugbe was alluding to, how he may be perceived in the minds of others.
Yes. Yes, Chamberlain, I don't think you'll be following up, that boy's, program. And even after that particular video went viral, there has been a lot of interview by television houses, by bloggers about the boy's, conduct, and even with the parents. The parents now, they have become a star, and they are trying to say, "Look, I did something that is wrong." That boy acknowledged the fact that, "Mommy, I'm wrong. Please give me the last chance. I'm not going to offend you anymore." So we are in an era of social media. That's why we and I got to know that this is happening every day in our home. I don't know why they are bringing this matter to proportion. And I'm so, so sad that my learned trio is carrying this matter to extreme, even comparing with politicians and others. This is extreme measure. We are now in a new era. That's a case method of reasoning. That, that boy is a thief. That boy is this. The mom should not, penalize him and all that. I don't believe in all that. We are making a mountain out of a new hill. That is a correct bias that was shown in that video. And it was a comic relief to most of us. I looked at that video and I smiled and I laughed. And I saw some level of intelligence with the boy of 4 years. He displayed intelligence. He displayed knowledge. He displayed ability to negotiate himself out of trouble. And the man did not in any way punish him any further. So I don't see anyone making a mountain out of that particular video as something that I should have regard and respect. Honestly, it is being extreme. It's been extreme.
Mr. Obani, as we round off, let me take this back to Mr. Tubiele. And obviously, this opens up a new vista. And the question is, what is too much? What is okay? Well, it's a big question, but we have to find our ways around it. Because, you find some parents now taking it to the extreme, especially because Mr. Obani says this is the age of social media. Some people just want to trend and get that attention. So the challenge is, the extreme, and which is permissive. So how do we really draw the line and say, this is okay, but maybe this is too much?
Thank you. My learned friend alluded to the scriptures, the Bible. The Bible is neither old nor young. So that I'm old is not a disadvantage. I've raised up children. My father is an educationist. My father was a professor. My mother was a principal of schools. I wasn't a perfect child, but I wasn't raised up to be abused, to be embarrassed. My father beat me a few times in private. I was beaten in secondary school, caned in public, and I never liked it till today. Their correction is supposed to be done in private. Let us not celebrate evil. The fact that if that child goes out in the public now, people will be pointing at him. Oh, that's the boy accused of stealing at a very young age. So it's wrong. It's an abuse. You can correct your child in private. My father used to beat me up in private. Being an educationist who did educational psychology, after beating me up, he will now call me, he will explain to me the reasons why he beat me. And I loved him till he died. because all the bad things I used to do, he will beat me, correct me, and tell me why I have gone wrong. That is my own point. That is how to discipline a child.
All right, Ms. Obani, quickly, briefly, we need to go. Some say that child was in distress, exhibited high levels of psychological torture. So, in your conclusion, you still maintain your stance, don't you?
Yes. So, Chamberlain, I want to say, and I will close that I'm also a father, and by the grace of God, I've also been able to bring up a lawyer. I think that what has happened with that young man is something that we should also learn. To calm down in our national life, calm down in things we do in our home, calm down in the office where we operate, calm down in every aspect. Let's always look at issues from other perspectives, not looking at it from one side, one way of doing things and all that, which is what has not helped us as a nation. So to me, everyone should calm down in order to take reason before doing certain things. And that was that message that boy was trying to pass across to the mom. It's not by beating only. There is other way of training me and bringing me and making me a better child. That is my understanding of the slogan, calm down. Let us
All right, Mr. Bani.
As a people. Yes.
Okay, many are wondering if asking you if you're going to ask a judge to calm down when they're hitting the gavel or something, but we do thank you both for talking to us on this matter. Mr. Monday Obani and Mr. Abiodun Tubiyele, both legal practitioners. We're back in just a moment. Stay with us. All right, welcome back. Let's see what you're all talking about now. We've got this one from Sheikh Al-Musti, who says, all these talks are unnecessary. You have reporters in the state. Ask them how they navigate the roads in rainy season. Well, he says, ain't just defending his meal ticket.
Well, this next one, Henry also tweets about Imo, saying, on Imo, it's another sad day. It is obvious that the current state government came into power unprepared, and he says confused on how to navigate to keep the state afloat. Propaganda, he says, cannot help here. Its gains are momentary.
Chris Moka is speaking about the same topic, perhaps in the same vein. Imo State is in a total mess at the moment, he says. How can they say they're very fine, and that's why they're not paying teachers? I know teachers in the state who have been complaining for months.
Well, Prince Hussein says, I drove from Lagos to Uyo in Akwa Ibom State. That's a long distance. Last Friday, he says, and had to drive through Imo State. I am appalled at the conditions of the roads in Imo. Over 2 hours of driving through bad roads in Imo found me, what? Cursing government? Ooh.
Cool. Well, Olagoju compares the NNPC and politicians in the country to Siamese twins of the same mother, and he calls his mother corruption. Says, and we know nothing will be done until someone at the very top wants to use the anti-corruption machinery to settle a personal score.
Well, this one is from Labisi Oil, says, many parenting styles are archaic because we now have tech-savvy children. The mom hasn't done anything wrong, Olabisi believes, while the child has shown a great potential in him, a great mediator.
Well, Lorenzo thinks the calm down video is a clear case of child abuse. That child was not disciplined. Times have changed. Many Nigerian adults today are suffering from the effect of similar abuse when they were children. In the UK, the child will be in care and his mother charged. Well, Likwangosa and several others think the same thing, that the child exhibited some mental stress. Well, that is a show today. We thank you all for watching. We'll see you again tomorrow. I'm Chamberlain also.
I'm Kaido Hikyolu.
And I'm Ayo Makinde. Please do stay safe. Have a wonderful day.